Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King S.2 hollering at you one more again. And we start on time again at 3:33, catching the synchronicity. Family, I thank you. Let's all climb on in and join the conversation. This is Buildin with Big King podcast, season number 2, episode number 7. All right. Thank you all. Certainly it's not possible without all of my family and friends and all of my fellow truth seekers, right? Folks with an open mind and warm hearts that want to try and set a foundation for a high vibrational frequency paradigm going here forward, one that we like to say exhibits and exudes peace, love, respect. Welcome to the Buildin with Big King podcast. We got another magnificent episode again today with a fabulous subject matter that I can't wait to hear your thoughts and opinions on. I'm going to go ahead and do as I typically do at the onset and allow a few moments for folks to kind of climb on in and join the conversation. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to do an ill-advised artist leak, or at least they say it's ill-advised. I don't know. And go ahead and let you folks kind of catch a little leak, just a little leak of a new song here. I'm not even going to give you the title, but I will just let it play. This is a new song that will be on the new Big King S.2 album released this year. All right. So while this plays, I'm going to let everybody file in, and we're going to get ready to do this thing. Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect.
I let this hip-hop in me. Where in the world is sending me? I'm flexible, but don't bend me. I'm the type that don't spin me. Just give me. Let this hip-hop in me. Where in the world is sending me? I'm flexible, but don't bend me. Just bend me. Just give me.
Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect.
I'm on a hip-hop high. So why would I try to ever break this or shake this or even deny any part of me that starts to be awkwardly slides down that long dark alley, lost look in the eyes. Don't be a crook in disguise, addicted to failure, cause they'll nail you to the in hell. You what in the world can I tell you to make you reconsider? Big King's the firstborn male, the Pharaoh shivers, cause I seem to represent the end of the chapter. What could really go wrong? What could they really be after? Is it really respect? Why not just take it right along, then break it, crack his jaw and shake with everything that's in his pockets just to set the example. Big King, the type of thing they really can't handle. Scandal how his style was completely dismantled and left in the basement, erased and replaced with an example of greatness still found on your playlist. You disrespected me, so would it be tasteless for me to go faceless and devoid of compassion? So the boy just harassed him till the man collapsed him and his words just flashed him. No problem, no action, no smoke when he asked him. He just crawled back in the shadows with a guard and cast him. Are you ready for the shit last?
Come on in with us.
Where in the world is sending? I'm flexible, but don't bend me. I'm the top that don't spin me.
Worldwide movement.
Let this hip hop in me. Where in the world is sending? I'm flexible, but don't bend me. Just bend me. Let this hip hop in me. Where in the world is sending? I'm flexible, but don't bend me. I'm the top that don't spin me. Just give me. Let this hip hop in me. Where in the world is sending? I'm flexible, but don't bend me. Just bend me.
Low vibe premiere on the Big King S.2 podcast one time.
Once again. You know what they like to say. You could have been anywhere. But just when you touch.
All right, family. We'll allow a couple of more seconds for folks to pile in, but we have a very interesting subject matter for us to discuss today. And again, as I said, I really can't wait to hear your thoughts and ideas on the subject. Give me just a moment. All right. WNDs. All right, folks. So today's subject matter, right, is essentially a question that I'm posing to you all, right? Um, are transhumanist ideals and concepts, right? Should I say transhumanist concepts and objectives impacting and influencing today's medical industry, right? Are they steering contemporary medicine? So, to me, folks, this is an extremely, and welcome, please, anybody who's just coming in, you could either announce yourself in the chat. I love to say what's up to you, say hi, and welcome you into the conversation. Brother God Size always can depend on the brother coming through, giving his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Thank you, family. I salute to you. Always. True indeed. Yeah, today we are building on that subject. I'm posing the question, are transhumanist concepts and objectives steering contemporary medicine, right? Anybody else that wants to announce themselves in the chat, please feel free to do so. You don't have to. It's completely up to you. But I would love to say what's up to you, right? And we certainly love to hear anything that you would have to add to the conversation when I open it up. Just a moment here. So yeah, today's episode is us really tackling that very complex and interesting, very important question. Are transhumanist concepts and objectives steering contemporary medicine? Right? And if so, to what degree and in what ways? So, just to open this up, folks, one of the things that that really inspires me to talk about this is the increasing popularity of what we call WMDs, or wearable medical devices, right? And I'm not posing an opinion as to whether they're right or wrong necessarily. Perhaps we'll delve into that question during this conversation as to whether or not in general we all concur that they're a good or bad idea. But just so that you know, wearable medical devices are electronic devices that can be worn on or near the body to monitor, collect, and manage health conditions. They also are known to provide real-time data and insights to improve healthcare outcomes and empower individuals to take charge of their health. Now, that's sort of with the sales pitch of it, right? But if we think about this, let's just open our minds up on this subject. One of the key statements in that description, I believe, is the fact that these devices provide real-time information, right? So now, not debating whether or not that's helpful or not helpful, right? In assisting a physician or some other medical professional with providing medical care. Not even debating that. I want us to potentially look at it from a different perspective. How is that achieved, right? It seems to me the only way that is possibly achieved, and I'm not a professional or an expert on WMDs or wearable medical devices at all, and don't claim to be. But I can ask intelligent questions about the subject, right? Sister Carrie coming in, I salute you one time. Thank you, my dear, for coming in and joining the conversation. We appreciate that. You don't have to say or make any statements. Thank you just for coming in and paying attention to the podcast, right? But I will be opening this up in a moment. So yeah, the objective is for us to look at how are these things being accomplished, right? If we're talking about real-time information being transferred from a human body up to the cloud, right? And then downloaded or transmitted to some access point for a physician or medical professional to be able to access that information and then make it actionable, right? In order for that to happen, we have to have connectivity, right? There's no way around that. There has to be a degree of connectivity between the actual medical device, the wearable medical device that's on the patient's body, right? And wherever it's being received, whatever server that information is being downloaded from the cloud to. So the issue of connectivity, we're talking about a real-time, live connection between that person's physical body, right? Because that's where the medical device is located, and the cloud being the modality for that information to be transferred to some server for someone in the medical industry to retrieve that information. So we're talking about a Wi-Fi signal that must be emitted from the wearable medical device. So let's go even a little bit more into it. If we're talking about a signal and information, then we also must be talking about a device that's capable of collecting said information. Well, how is that possible? So this device would have to have some form of a scanning mechanism, right? Some form of a scanning mechanism that is capable of interpreting the biometric signals that your body would relay back to the device, right? And then once that information is collected, it is again sent essentially through the cloud, right? Through some Wi-Fi signal to its destination, right? So now, a couple of things that to me right away pose a bit of an issue. Number one, that's scanning. Because folks, think a little bit back into just some of the forms of medical scans that we've been exposed to in the past, right? We're talking about things like x-rays. We're talking about MRIs, right? We're talking about scanning, electromagnetic scanning from devices like ECGs or electrocardiographs, right? All sorts of scans, both on your heart, your brain, potentially, all throughout your cardiopulmonary system, your nervous system, anywhere that you have previously experienced some form of a medical scan, right? Now, we know with many of those older medical scans that we're a little bit more familiar with, there are certain cautions that are taken, like, right, when an individual gets an x-ray done, there's usually some form of like a flap jacket that's applied to you. It used to be sort of a jacket with lead um, that would be able to block the signals or limit the signals, or should I say, the strength of the X-rays, right? And then we know that the X-ray technician typically steps out of the actual area in which the X-ray is being administered, right? Similar things can be said about other scans like MRIs and electrocardiographs, etc. There's always some degree of caution being taken because we know that these things can impact a human body and potentially impact a human body in an adverse way, right? This is not any revelation that I'm posing right now. So I'm saying if those scans pose potentially those sorts of concerns, what sorts of concerns do the scans performed by these wearable medical devices pose to a human body today? And then there's the transferring of that information, right? We again are talking about a increased connectivity and a live Wi-Fi connection of some sort, right, by which that information can be transmitted from the person, from the device that's on the person's body, up through the modality of the cloud to its destination on some medical server, you would think. Brother Michael Washington, thank you once again for coming on in. All right. And Leisha in the house as well. Thank you, cousin Leash. Definitely, I appreciate you folks coming in and checking out the podcast and lending your ideas and your thoughts on the subject. Once again, folks, just to refresh, we were talking about or posing the question, are transhumanist concepts and objectives steering the medical industry? And this is magnificent that we have Alicia in the house, right? Because, well, I don't want to at least go too far into what you do. I'll let you determine what you want to divulge on that subject. But we're talking about, and I'm posing the question of connectivity, and one of the aspects and potential modalities through which these concerns about transhumanist concepts or objectives being applied are the WMDs, right? The wearable medical devices. So we're talking first about the scanning and the technologies involved there, and then also about the connectivity, right? Having that live Wi-Fi connection and utilizing the cloud as a modality to transmit that information to its end destination, whatever server it's going to. And that's one aspect. Beyond the WMDs, we see a lot of procedural changes, right? What I mean by that or advancements, you might say. The pioneering of new medical techniques that are actually involving artificial appendages, artificial devices that assist the function of a particular organ or organ group, right? Or that are intended to assist some bodily system, right? Also, with those procedures, those medical advancements, we'll say, I'm being careful because, again, I'm not a physician and not a medical professional or anyone who could be considered to be an expert, right, on these devices. But I'm posing questions that anyone who would, either be wearing these devices or utilizing them or have been prescribed them by some medical professional, or B, be a family member, like a parent, for example, that would be involved in this process. Um, and then also there are the procedures that probably are going even a step further, because if we're talking about the wearable medical devices, those are external, right? In most cases, when we're talking about and temporary also. But when we're talking about these procedures, we're talking about things that are being um, potentially added to your body on a permanent basis. And the fact that it's inside your body is also certainly more invasive, right? And something that would, just by its nature, potentially pose more concern. So, now, to take it to another level, those are the sort of the applications, right? Or at least some of the potential applications. Perhaps you all may come up with some others that you'll suggest later. I'm going to go into how those applications make it from their creation to us, right? Because that's where the corporations, the medical corporations that produce these either medical devices that are wearable, or the devices or mechanisms that are being implanted or surgically added to a person's body, right? How do they make it? Obviously, they're sold, right? The same way any other product is sold. But we're talking about sales that are going directly into the medical industry, right? So, just the same way the sales element exists with the pharmaceutical industry impacting the medical industry, we also need to look at the viable implications of the sales of these devices into the medical industry for our use, concerning those two in particular, the wearable medical devices, and also um, anything that would be implanted or of a more permanent nature, right? Um, what corporations, or should I say, what are the objectives beyond making money? That's an obvious objective, right? And we can't fault any company for wanting to make money. That's why you go in business, right? Um, but what are the implications on the users, right? And the families of the users? And has there been enough careful consideration of the impacts? And then what agendas do exist? Because there is a very powerful and very influential transhumanist um, agenda that we know is in play, um, because it's not being hidden by by those who have that agenda, i.e., Elon Musk, for example, right? Talks a lot about his devices, like Neuralink, right? That is even a different application than wearable medical devices or any kind of a medical implant that would have a level of connectivity. He's actually talking about just devices that are, the word I want to use is convenience, that are convenience driven, right? So we're not talking about them being um, utilized for any medical necessity, but out of the inspiration to achieve some convenience, right? Or some increased level of connectivity. Um, Hands-free devices are going to a new level, right? There are glasses that are smart glasses that have some level of connectivity, not just some level, a high level connectivity, because they're sort of constantly connected to the cloud using some Wi-Fi modality, right? So that is a whole nother application or means of which we're seeing human bodies having direct interaction, physical interaction, right? And certainly electromagnetic or signal generating interaction with these devices and mechanisms that both have the ability of intricate scanning, right? Um, and the connectivity to transmit that information back to its end source, right? Or whatever user um, on the other end needs to collect that data or is utilizing that data to whatever end. So these things are incredibly impactful to us physically, right? Again, like I said, think about it. I mean, there are a lot of different ways and angles of which to look at this, right? What about the folks who have been positively impacted by these medical devices and have been afforded um, increases of, of quality of life in some way, right, by these devices, whether it be the wearable devices or something that would be an implant, right? What about even potential ways that these things may improve the quality of life for a person if we're talking about devices that are convenience driven, right? Like those glasses I referred to earlier, the smart glasses. All of these things have to be considered. And in my estimation, weighed, right? But I'm a Libra. I tend to do some weighing. But I think we have to weigh the advantages versus the potential disadvantages, right? First of all, I think personally, right, this is my opinion, and I think it's reflected. I know it's reflected in the research I've personally done. Please do this free thinking, independent research for yourself. But I know that there has not been enough consideration um, which would lead to enough testing, right, and experimentation that would yield repeatable results that we can make determinations from as to what is uh, acceptable, suitable, healthy, or not healthy for an individual who would potentially utilize or benefit from either the wearable medical devices, the implants, or the convenience driven devices or mechanisms, right? We need to weigh what's happening here. What are we gaining and what is potentially being risked? So, again, I know or feel that as a result of my research, that there's not been enough given in consideration to the fact that human beings are electromagnetic ourselves in nature. And that again, as we discussed in previous podcast episodes, that we do have an electromagnetic biosphere or a field that we project, right? This is an interactive field, right? Meaning that this field both impacts things that it comes in contact with on an energetic level and vice versa, right? Things that impact it on an electromagnetic level or an energetic level. So, how do these things impact us in those ways, right? Um, we did a previous podcast where we talked about the fact that our auras, right, or our auric bodies. And that aspect of looking at our electromagnetic field um, and the chakras that correlate to our different auric bodies also are connected to and impact, right, and are influenced by our different bodily systems, organs, and organ groups. Okay. So all of these things have to be weighed when we are talking about something that is potentially interacting with us and impacting us on an electromagnetic level or a signal based level, right? Which is certainly necessary for any of that scanning or transmitting of that sort of information. And what does that connectivity do to us when we talk about connectivity to the cloud or any modality by which you're utilizing a Wi-Fi signal to transmit that information? How does that impact us, right? And to what level are we okay with it impacting us, right? It could impact us on a very minimal level, or perhaps it impacts us more greatly than we might realize. All right. So I think this is a very interesting subject. And I know myself, I have, again, I spoke briefly about this in previous podcast episodes that I have seen uh, via the usage of an EMF meter, electromagnetic frequency meter, um, the impact and the reality of my own electromagnetic field, right? Like it's one thing for me to stand here saying this to you, but I've actually done and conducted some of my own experiments with the aid of another scientifically inclined individual and or individuals, and one of which at least a scientist in his own right. And I've seen measurably, right, my electromagnetic field and how the field can fluctuate, how it is impacted by different things, and how it can impact things. So I'm very much concerned about and very much would be interested before I would utilize any of these things in knowing exactly how they would impact um, that aspect of me, right? My electromagnetic field. This is a very real thing about what human beings are. So those concerns are certainly very real. And then also that connectivity, right? Um, I'm very much concerned about what I want shared, right? Through any sort of a Wi-Fi modality. Um, and certainly anything as personal as my biometric medical readings, right? Um, that's a huge concern for me, right? Um, for example, we know that Apple Watches advertise in their commercials how they um, can sort of track or keep track of and chart your circadian rhythms and what's going on with your sleep patterns, right? Um, Personally, that's a bit invasive, right? That's a bit too invasive. I don't want that level of scanning of my brain activity, which is electromagnetic activity. This is why it's able to be scanned, right? Um, I don't know that I want any device. I don't want any device myself personally um, scanning or having the ability to perform any electromagnetic readings on my brain activity, right? Or of my brain activity. And then certainly having the ability to transmit that information. And then we have to realize, folks, not only is there the potential of the one-way communication where the information is being transmitted from the patient's body or the person's body or the user's body um, through that Wi-Fi, whatever Wi-Fi modality it is, to the server or end user for them just receiving the information. But what about what's being sent back? Or, hey, folks, at least potentially what could be sent back, right? Um, to me, these are very real concerns, um, especially when we take this conversation to another level and we don't act like we're naive and we be very real about the fact that we've already discussed, at least here on this podcast, the mindset and the agenda of the socially economic elite who just happen to own and head up these companies that are bringing us these technologies, right? We've seen that their mindset, many of them being of the depopulist mind state, right? And serving and sort of doing whatever they can to propagate that agenda, right? These are the folks that are bringing us these technologies. So to me, in essence of their origins, we should pump the brakes and have a bunch of question marks, right? Is this cool or not? Is this cool for me? Is this good? Is this healthy? Is this viable without negative consequence for me and my family? That's the question in general that I'm posing to everyone about different ways that we're seeing potentially transhumanist concepts and objectives being brought to us through various technological ways that they're being implemented, right? Now, again, there are those folks, and I'm not trying to disparage Elon Musk in any way. I have my own personal thoughts, and they're just that, my own personal thoughts. But I do not, and this is not an attempt to disparage him personally at all. But he's expressed some ideas that gave me pause, right? Like with the neural link, to me, that's way too connective, right? Way too connective. It's way too invasive into the physicality of a human being, right? Personally, that's my opinion. And some of the visions of where he personally and a lot of his colleagues or those who would belong to that school of thought see human beings going. Folks, there is a school of thought in general that tends to view the advancement of human beings, or should I say, the actual evolution of humanity being implemented, steered through, and essentially brought into fruition through human beings becoming more compatible with and actually physically melding more so with artificial components, potentially even robotic components, right? Um, Different technologies actually interfacing with, interacting with, intertwining with, and becoming part of our human physicality, right? To me, folks, to me, that vision is no different. And I don't know how many of y'all watch Star Trek or have been Trekkies, but that's like the mentality of the Borgs, right? And if you don't know who I'm talking about or what I'm talking about, the Borgs are these robotic beings, these cyborg-like beings that were a huge enemy of Starfleet, right? Imposed a massive danger in the universe, as they were pretty much on intergalactic conquest because their vision was the perfection of all biological entities through the interface and intertwining with and melding with technological and artificial components. Just a little too similar, right? Just a little too similar. When in fact, my vision personally of the evolution of humanity is more based on human beings becoming more of what human beings were actually designed to be. What I mean by that is that, and I've spoken about this on previous podcasts, human beings currently are walking around on the planet only expressing their DNA or having their DNA expressed only about 33 or 30, somewhere in the 30th percentile, right? Somewhere in the 30s, you're expressing your DNA's full efficacy, right? Like, so you're literally only expressing about 30 or so percent of the information that is contained within your DNA that expresses what you are designed to be, right? So to me, my vision of humanity evolving is humanity evolving through higher DNA efficacy, higher and higher percentages. This would be reflective of or similar to what you would see or had seen somewhat of an example of in the movie Lucy, starring Morgan Freeman, right? Um, Really interesting movie, a cool movie to me for anybody who wants to go back and take a look at that. But the concept there was that this woman was forcefully turned into a drug mule, and the drug that she happened to be forced into carrying physically in her body um, was a new drug that was designed to. It was based actually. It's based. Let's not get too far away from the core of the science there, which reverts back to the magnificence of human beings. It was actually based on what medical professionals, doctors, and scientists had been able to extract from umbilical cords, right? And the it's escaping me. I used to talk to this. Anybody help me out? You know what I'm talking about. What are they getting from there? That fluid. Ah, come on, folks. The fluid that so much research has been done about, and it has aided us in the breaking down of the human genome. Come on. Anyway, it'll come to me later. Excuse me, folks. But anyway, the point is that she ingested this drug because the pouch became ruptured in her body, and large amounts of this drug flooded her system and caused her to express higher and higher percentages of her own DNA efficacy, right? Which allowed her to access higher and higher percentages of her mental and physical capabilities, right? Which medical professionals and scientists for decades have expressed to us that we only use small percentages of. This is what I'm talking about, folks, using more and more increased percentages of. But anyway, this woman went through various increases and improvements and abilities that she acquired as she moved into higher and higher percentages of DNA efficacy, right? Um, So that's sort of along the lines of what I'm looking to see happen with human beings, but through natural processes, right? Through our connectivity with the planet, refining our diet, thinking and becoming more and more attuned, set in, and resonating with a high vibrational frequency resonance of our own, right? And operating more in higher consciousness, which fosters and allows for higher DNA efficacy. That's the vein of human evolution that I and many other folks who are embracing this awakening are looking to see, as opposed to an artificial evolution that is spurred on by these devices and technologies. But that's my spew and take on it and some of my concerns and thoughts on it. I got to open it up, and I'd love to hear as much as possible from you folks. Brother God Science 7, Sister Carrie, Mike, Leash, holler back at me. Amniotic fluid. Thank you, Carrie. Yes. Yes. There's also another component of that fluid that I wanted to more specifically identify, but it'll come to me at some point. But thank you, Carrie, so much for that. Yeah, folks, let me ask and pose to you, what direction, what path of human evolution would you more so like to see humanity, which breaks down and eventually falls down right in the lap of you and your family, right? How would you like to see us advance in terms of our evolution? Do you think it's more viable and better that we go down a path of evolution assisted artificially by these different technologies? Or would you prefer and think it is better, more holistic and healthier for us to go down the path of evolution that I just described through natural means and processes? Which would you all identify? I send that question out, holler back at me, because, certainly it is you all's input and you all's questions and statements that I'm able to read back through the chat that makes for such a magnificent conversation. We don't want to just sit and listen to me spewing off the top of my head, right? Or relaying to you the results of my research. I can do this all the time, but we're not here just to hear me talk. I really need to find out what you all think. So please get back at me, brother God Science. What you think about it? Thank you for your input, Sister Carrie, brother Michael. Least with questions, statements, comments that you have on the subject. Least being someone who I think has a unique perspective on this subject. What might you say on this particular issue? And don't feel pressure if you don't want to divulge or go into your perspective, or I might think you have a interesting perspective on it. But if anyone has any statements, questions, concerns, or thoughts on this subject, I certainly would love to hear them, because I think that this is very impactful to us, right? This is I think that what sometimes is difficult for us, and this is why folks who have channels like Sister Deanne, right, with Deanne, connecting the dots with Deanne, is very important, because she literally specializes in, and I hope she chimes in, specializes in and sort of does that form of research, right? Connecting the dots, making the connections that are not always easily visible, right? And I think sometimes it's difficult for us to see where, okay, we know that realistically we do have the socially economic elite who at least part of their agenda, right, is transhumanism, right? Also, it's been identified that it's transgenderism. Not that I'm necessarily demonizing that, but certainly I have a myriad of concerns in that arena, right? And I think that it's difficult sometimes for us to actually visualize or bring into practicality how those agendas go from those who originate the agendas down to us, right? In our average everyday daily lives. And yeah, man, that's important in understanding that and trying to envision how these things are coming into our lives and how they potentially impact us. That is actually the thought driven behind today's episode, is just taking a realistic look at how these things are impacting us. And are we seeing these different technologies being used as a modality for these agendas, um, these concepts, these objectives to be implemented into modern medicine and directly into our lives, right? Um, like these are not frivolous things to be considered when you're talking about um, being intrusive of, invasive of, or just going in some way into a deeper connectivity of human physicality with technology. I think that's a very important and profound area for us to give some existential thought, right? Like, what is a human being, and when and where and how does the line between humanity and artificial technologies, like where is that line drawn, and can it be blurred, and does this sort of connectivity or interaction blur that line in some way? Holler back at me, folks. Come on now. I'm a hold up. I'm gonna shut up for a minute and give folks a moment to think about that. While I'm doing so, right, I'm gonna do like I typically tend to do and give an opportunity to self promote just a little bit. First of all, everybody, please, you don't know how important it is for you to please go out and support me by buying my books, right? Which I hope were very helpful to you. All of which available on Amazon. Well, two books available in both paperback print and ebook format on Amazon.com. Just put in there Big King S.2, and you'll see my books pop right up, right? In the Amazon home search. And also audiobook. My first book is available in the form of audiobook on audible.com, right? Please check out my music, right? As it always, I intertwine my concepts into my music and try to utilize what KRS identified to us back in the day as edutainment, as we entertain and educate at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with my music. Check that out, please. On all the major streaming platforms, just search Big King S.2. It'll pop right up for you. Of course, you know about the podcast, and most of you who are checking out the podcast, I would imagine, know about my YouTube channel with over 600 videos that I've uploaded for you, informational and inspirational videos that sort of form a library that you can access at any time. Yeah, folks, please check me out in all ways. I'm on Instagram. Just again, search Big King S.2 on Instagram, rumble.com. My Rumble channel is BKS Light, BKS for Big King S.2 Light on rumble.com, right? Have I forgotten anything? SoundCloud as well. I have things on SoundCloud, X, of course. Same thing, just search Big King S.2. And please check me out on all of those platforms. Folks, I appreciate tremendously you being here with me in any form of support that you show. So thank you in advance for that. Please do me a real solid in helping to maintain the awareness about this podcast and about the channel in general. When you subscribe to the channel, please go ahead and do an additional click of that bell. And then there's going to be like a drop down. Please go all and click for the all notifications, right? That way you get notifications about all my content and certainly will not miss notifications about the podcast and new videos. All right, man. Thank you all so much. This has, again, been a very interesting subject for me, and I hope for you as well, because I think it's very important and very impactful on our lives, right? And a very poignant, I guess is a good word, question for us to be asking ourselves as we move forward in a changing of paradigms and a shifting of paradigms on this planet, and knowing full well that there are agendas supporting either direction of the shift, right? Certainly those who are clutching and clinging, right, onto the old paradigm and its narratives, and those of us who are so open-armed and enthusiastically embracing the advent of our new paradigm, one that we like to say exhibits and exudes peace, love, respect, right? I'm going to allow a couple more moments for any other questions, concepts, concerns. I say concepts. Well, you might have some concepts you want to share. Any other questions, concerns, or statements that you might want to make relative to this subject? I'm going to give a few more moments for folks to do that. And in that time, I'm going to also slide out that quick reminder. This is, of course, content that is of the adult nature. I send that reminder out on just about every podcast, I think. Content for the channel is generally for all ages. Generally speaking, there are perhaps a couple of slightly sensitive videos, but in general, all ages pretty much my content is made for. And the only reason we specified that on this podcast it is adult is an adult forum, because we don't want to have anyone feel encumbered, hindered in any way, like they have to hold back or censor themselves. We're all adults here. Just let your opinion, whatever you think about any subject, go ahead and throw it out there and feel free in doing so, right? So again, I'm leaving a little bit of time and space for that. Anybody that got anything you want to say further about this, please take the next minute or two to go ahead and holler at me. We're going to, once again, go ahead and partake of the modality of the brethren, sister and brethren, marijuana, ganja, righteous cannabis. Again, folks, we should have never been denied the use and benefit of that modality, that very high vibrational frequency modality of us accessing higher forms of ourselves, right? And some even say higher dimensional aspects of ourselves. So as I do that and kick back, please chime in with anything else you have to ask or say. In fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and play one more song. This will be one of the songs that I've already previously released. While we are awaiting anyone else's comment, statement, question, any other way that they want to bring something up to this forum. But for your entertainment pleasure, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and play a little something for y'all. We're doing this thing all together. And let's see if we can do that. Bring up Big King S.2. Song title, All Together. One time, Build with Big King. The podcast where we lay down the giant stones, the foundation stones, as we apply and build the foundation for our new high vibrational frequency paradigm, right? One that we say exhibits, exudes peace, love, respect. Thank you for building the foundation with Big King as we do that each and every episode.
Times back to take control. Attacked the while he spoke, attacked the while he sleep. He just marched and booted and turned it into something sweet. Let it stop in the juggernaut once set in motion.
Thank you all, folks, for coming and build with me. You don't know how important this podcast is to me, and you taking your time to be with me. Thank you.
Laughing and joking, having fun and keeping it open. All together, all together, all together. We finally made it. Wow, we did it all together. We finally made it now. We can't enjoy it forever. We finally made it. How can we just all collect all this beauty for my life of peace, love, respect? We finally made it. Wow, we did it all together. We finally made it now. We can't enjoy it forever. We finally.
That's how we made this podcast. How we keep it going. All together.
Fellas, show your area love and hoods up. Cause it's strong like the king should be. Final dancer with the ladies is probably 2 or 3. Who are we to do anything less than celebrate? We rid the world of negativity, pain, and hate. Nothing lasts forever. I thought I told them devils. They trapped the world in this misery on so many levels. But we expressing our happiness together with boom. This party ain't over like no time soon. This party ain't over like no time soon. We finally made it. Wow, we did it all together. We finally made it now. We can't enjoy it forever. We finally made it. How can we just all connect?
Any other questions, comments, statements on today's subject matter?
We did it all together.
Please feel free.
We can't enjoy it forever. We finally made it. How can we just all collect all this beauty for my life of peace, love, respect? All together. Together.
All together, that's how we do it. All right. I'm going to wait another moment or two, folks. And then I'm going to close out what has been another magnificent podcast episode with my friends, my family. Man, I love y'all, truly. Just so you know, I truly appreciate on a very deep level your participation and your being here with me. Brother God Side 7 always comes and joins in. Thank you, Sister Carrie, once again for coming and contributing to the podcast. Brother Michael Washington, Cuz, Lease, thank you both for coming and chiming in and contributing. I appreciate you. Thank you both and all so tremendously. And without further ado, if nobody else has any other statements, comments, or questions, I'm going to close it out, man. But I thank you all so much tremendously for coming and doing what? Building with Big King S.2 on the Buildin with Big King S.2, Buildin with Big King podcast. Once again, this has been episode 7, and I'm so happy to get to this point, right? And to tell you all, I look forward to building with you again next week, right? Same time, 3:33 sharp. That's when I start the podcast, folks. Every Sunday at 3:33, we catch that synchronicity. We have been on time all season, right? That's pretty dope. And we're going to continue doing so. And yeah, man, I thank you all tremendously. Please come back. Please, please, please come back next week and be with me again for another episode of Building with Big King, season number 2. I thank you all. I love you all. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq. I'm out.